Am I the a-hole for telling my siblings the real reason why my parents got divorced? I, 22 male, have 3 other siblings, 18 male, 15 male, and 12 female. Our parents are no longer together because of my mom's 42 female infidelity. She was seeing my best friend's dad. When my father found out, he kicked her out, and she ended up moving with her affair partner and broke 2 marriages. This all happened 6 years ago, and my siblings saw my dad as the bad guy who kicked their mother out. 15 male and 12 female decided to live with my mom, and dad only had them on weekends. My 18 male brother stayed with us because he was closer to my dad already, but he didn't know what caused our family to fall apart and also seemed to resent my dad. I visited my mom as often as I could, and she seemed happy to have me, but I was the only one who knew what happened. My dad never bad-talked my mother and never let my siblings know why they split, even if he had to be seen as the bad guy who kicked her out. And my mom never took any responsibility of what she did to our family. They get along with Jeff, mom's husband, but I did but lost a lot of respect for him when he went after my mom. My dad will get married to Rose this October 21st, my late grandma's birthday, and he told my siblings that he wished to have them with him. They started being so mean to him and basically shaming for getting married and accused him of cheating because he started dating Rose long ago. Even 18 male did. They really hate Rose because she came into our lives like 6 months after my mom was kicked out. So I asked them to stop. My dad isn't confrontational, so he told me to leave it like that. Then they started accusing Rose of being the reason my parents fell apart. But I told them that the reason was my mom's infidelity. Their faces turned red and asked me if I was joking, but I said no. They got back to my mom's house, and 2 days later they were back asking to stay with my dad full-time. Apparently, they confronted her and her husband about what happened. I called my mom to see if everything is okay, but she didn't answer. I went to her house and she was distant. We didn't talk much about it. Then her husband texted me later to call me the a-hole for telling my siblings about my mom's affair, and they seem to hate her now. I know it's hard for my mom now because she loves us, but my dad shouldn't be seen as the evil person, and she as the great flawless parent. Plus, Rose shouldn't be seen as a home wrecker when my mom is. Am I the a-hole for letting them know? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your mom and her affair partner have been lying to your siblings for years. They deserve the consequences of 1, their affair, 2, their subsequent lies over years, and 3, nor defending your dad or Rose. If they had wanted to keep the status quo and keep their betrayal and dishonesty a secret, they should have made an effort to welcome Rose and try to discourage your siblings from vilifying Rose and your dad. This is like the most brain-dead easy part of it too. If someone you screwed over is keeping your secret for you, you should make it as easy as possible to help them keep that secret. Having 2/3 of their kids hate them for what you did seems like a no-brainer in terms of the truth will come out. Literally just some lip service about how we weren't happy together and some other such nonsense would have gone a long way. That and encouraging her younger kids to split time more equitably, and this probably never comes out. Opie's father is a saint for never mentioning this to them. It must have torn him up in a big way. I love to see taking the high road pay off though. I hope the kids, dad, and Rose develop a beautiful loving family together. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry you're going through this. I wish I couldn't relate. I'm the only child of parents who got divorced because of my mom's infidelity. She remarried and had a new child. A fresh start. I was the only remnant of her past that was a reminder of her mistake. Growing up, I carried that secret in me because I could sense that everyone was trying to pretend like it was not a thing. My sibling was also much younger than me, and I was very protective of her. I didn't want her to grow up with the weight of all of this before she was old enough to understand complexity of good and bad. However, I didn't deserve to be isolated with this burden then or now, and neither do you. You were not the a-hole, but people will try their best to make you out to be the villain or the problem. You were not. What you are is the child of someone who made a mistake that she is now trying to pretend never happened. That is not what mature parents, or adults for that matter, are supposed to do. Such behavior causes more hurt and pain in the long run, not less. What you have allowed for is open communication. Your mom/stepdad is upset because they are being forced to face the consequences of their actions. Once that, even if ultimately were for the best for everyone, still caused a lot of hurt to many people. Adults own up to their mistakes, self-reflect, and learn to forgive themselves. Your mom is not acting like such. And frankly, I do not blame your younger siblings for feeling betrayed. The betrayal is ultimately not rooted in her infidelity. Their betrayal is rooted in being lied to. Hopefully your mom will ultimately understand the difference, and grew up into being an adult/parent for her kids. Until then, set strong boundaries for yourself if you need to from her if she is dumping emotional BS on you. You do not deserve that. You did absolutely nothing wrong. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister around my daughter after she declared she had no interest in interacting or holding her when she was a baby? I had my daughter 8 female when I was 22. My sister was 25 at the time. I don't know when she became child-free, but at my baby shower, she had a frown on her face the whole time and would say things like, "Oh, another expensive gift. Wow, could pay for my rent if I sold that." My pregnancy was quite scary, but everything turned out fine. When my family came to the hospital to greet and hold her, my sister refused to even touch her. Her explanation was that she doesn't like small kids, especially babies, and never wants to have them. I was quite sad at this and asked her why she wouldn't want to interact with her own family, just because she doesn't like or want kids. She just shrugged and handed me a congrats card. The rest of the family was horrified and she kind of became an outcast at that point. She was always starting some kind of drama with someone. Fast forward to now. A couple months ago, she started showing more interest in my daughter. She'd call and ask what her favorite colors and movies were, drop her presents off on my door. I asked her why. After all this time, she wanted to get to know my daughter. She said it was because my daughter was quite older now and she wasn't a screaming baby. She can hold a conversation now, so I think we'll get along just fine. I shook my head and said she made her decision to not interact with her years ago. I told her she doesn't just get to randomly decide when she wants to act like an aunt. I don't even think you love her. How could you? You don't even call me half the time. She said she was trying to be an aunt. I just had to give her a chance. I told her I had tried giving her many chances and she blew it. She called me an a-hole, said I couldn't let go of the past and that she knew me getting pregnant was the end of the sister she once knew. She hung up and told my husband everything. He says I have every right to not let her in my daughter's life, but I feel so unsure. The rest of the family agrees. Someone asked if she had been mean to me and the baby at some point, so I'm putting this here as well. After the family started shutting her out, she did talk crap about me and the baby in social media, to others, etc. I did give her many other chances to apologize and be in her niece's life despite this, but she blew it every time. Plus, she had been a problem way before I even got pregnant. She just wasn't pleasant to be around, unfortunately, and most people were done dealing with her. She did stop the drama after a while. She didn't keep talking crap for 8 years, but the damage was/is done. Opie edited the post and let us all know that her sister was being mean on social media and talking bad about her niece. So I'm changing my vote to not the a-hole, and I do think that info should have been in the original post. I'll answer about why I'm hesitant to give her a chance. I feel like she's only trying because she's realized she's lonely, and I'm really the only one that keeps in slight contact with her. I don't want her trying to make a relationship with her out of convenience. Plus, if she decides my daughter is annoying, won't she just leave again? Makes me nervous. Not the a-hole. Decisions have consequences. Being child-free is fine, but to refuse to interact with someone for almost a decade and then act like she can just waltz back in and everything will be smooth sailing is ridiculous. Life doesn't work like that. She's only thinking of herself and not your child. Your child is a stranger to her. They have no bond. She missed out on her entire life and now selfishly wants back in. You don't need to give her a chance if it means protecting your daughter from people that aren't good for her. She said I couldn't let go of the past. Yes, that is exactly right. As a parent, you cannot let go of the past because it is the best predictor of future events. Your sister may nope on out of your daughter's life again after 6 months or a year. She considers your daughter optional. She is not. Therefore, you must be her advocate and protect her. If you want to give your sister a chance, she can see your daughter when she is with you or with your mother or husband or some trusted relative. She will have to earn the right to have this relationship. It is not a right, it's a privilege, not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let it go after my parents falsely accused my brother of stealing from their house? I have an older half-brother, Rory. We share the same dad. I live with my mom and stepdad. Rory comes to see me regularly and we usually go out together. I'm 15, Rory is 24, and I have 2 stepsisters, 11 and 9. A few months ago, some valuable items were stolen from our house. Some jewelry, my stepdad's expensive watches, and some cash. They immediately accused Rory of doing it and banned me from seeing him or talking to him. I defended Rory and I was grounded as a result. The accusation was false because that day Rory picked me up outside and never came in. But they didn't believe me and accused me of lying to protect him. The police had no reason to believe it was my brother and they didn't even consider him a suspect. About 2 weeks ago, the thief was found out as he did the same thing at a relative's house, and they had security cameras and eventually confessed to stealing from us as well. It obviously was not Rory. It was my stepdad's nephew who had somehow copied his key without him noticing and used it to break in when nobody was home. I'm angry about all of this, and I asked them to apologize to both me and Rory for their false accusations, which my mom said she's happy to do, but my stepdad said no, and told me I just have to learn to move on. Later that day, I reminded him to be extra careful about his keys when he visits his relatives to be sure nobody steals it, and he wouldn't end up accusing people I love for no reason. This morning, he was looking for his sunglasses and couldn't find it, and I suggested that maybe I should help him find it before he goes to accuse someone innocent for stealing it. He looked at me and told me to stop being rude. My mom talked to me and told me that I should stop being an a-hole about it and apologize for not letting us move on from the unfortunate incident. I don't see why I should not advise caution when family will be the scapegoat if things go wrong. Am I the a-hole for expecting an apology and not moving on until I get it? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Accusing someone of stealing is a big deal. They just can't accept that they messed it up. Also, why did they accuse him? My stepdad just doesn't like him and always says he's a bad influence for no reason. Quick question. What about his nephew? Is he now banned from the house and can't be spoken to? If not, then your brother's banning wasn't about the theft. Your stepdad has a problem with your brother for no legitimate reason from what I'm seeing. His nephew is also banned now, but he does have a problem with my brother for no reason. His reason is because it's not his son. Not the a-hole. Did you get an apology for being grounded? Did Rory get an apology for being accused? Are you allowed to see Rory again? You are being petty, but I understand why. Not the a-hole. Why is it on you and Rory, the wronged parties in this scenario, to make nice and move on? Rory was slandered to the whole family. He could have been arrested if the cops were less conscientious. You were punished for providing him an alibi and not doing anything wrong. Yes, your stepfather acted abominably and he owes you and Rory apologies. You should not be expected to let this go, because your stepdad did you wrong, and it means he will let you, and other people, suffer for his pettiness and pride in the future. Nobody should let him think that's okay. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to split my inheritance with my 60-year-old nephew? My grandmother recently passed away and I was the sole benefactor of her will. She wasn't a rich woman, but she was comfortable enough, and she left me her house, car, and savings. My father is her only child, but he'd made it clear early on when the will was being written up that he didn't want anything from her will, so to give it to me, which he did. I have an older brother who I haven't seen in 5 years. He was disowned by the family for the crap he did, which included stealing from various members of the family. Other stuff I can't say without breaking the sub's rules, but it's bad. He and his then-girlfriend had a 1-year-old son when I last saw them. But honestly, they had no interest in him being around our family in the first place, and would often use him as a bartering chip against my parents. His girlfriend, who is now his ex apparently, reached out to me on social media the day after the funeral, and was all sweet and called me babes and used X's and emojis, which, ew, get lost, we're not friends. To sum it up, she asked when the will was being read so she could come. I asked her why she'd be coming, and she said to find out her son's share of the inheritance, obviously. I was beyond shocked at the audacity of this witch, and I told her as much, stating there was nothing in the will for him, and it had already been read to get the funeral plan she'd set out in it. She was angry at this, and demanded to know why he'd not been included in the will, and asked who'd gotten the things in the will. I pointed out how she had not acted like family, and my brother had been disowned. So really, how could you think he'd be in the will? I also told her that I had gotten all the stuff in the will. Mistake on my part, but whatever. She began to demand I split it with him, stating that that nice house was much too big for a single 21-year-old girl, and how I didn't need it as much as her as she had a child to take care of, and how I was being selfish and should sign it over to her or give her a cut of the money for my nephew's future, and that it was my responsibility as his aunt. I told her no, and to not contact me again. I've heard she's apparently talking on social media about how I've stolen her son's future and food from his mouth and a roof from over his head. I won't lie, it's stressing me and I'm starting to feel guilty. I don't care about her one bit. She can go curl up in a gutter for all I care for what she put my parents 3 years ago. But I feel guilty for my nephew. He's only a kid and none of this is his fault. But I have doubts on if anything I give her for him would really trickle down to him. Not today, Hall. However, if you wanted to do something nice for him, you could set up a trust in his name that only he will have access to when he's 18. But it's up to you. Unfortunately, sometimes the sins of the father do affect the son. Exactly what I came to say. You can put money aside for the nephew and contribute throughout the years for gifts you would have gotten him for birthdays and holidays if his parents didn't suck. He will be so grateful at 18 to have a way to get away from them because they sound toxic. Not today, Hall at all. If Grandma wanted him in the will, he'd be in there. It's funny how many vultures appear as soon as there's money involved. Not today, Hall. The binding of the will is absolute. You are not entitled to split it if you're the sole benefactor. And as the sole owner, advise her she will be trespassing if she tries to enter your home again. No, she didn't enter my home. This all took place online. But if she comes near the house, I'll do that. Edit. Too many people have suggested it for me to reply to you all, so I'm editing this in here. Thank you for your suggestions about a trust fund for him. When I meet with a lawyer about my own will, I'm going to discuss that with them. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he wasn't going to be walking me down the aisle? Me 28 female and my husband 34 male got married 2 days ago. My mother and stepfather walked me down the aisle. Backstory. My father 48 male and my mother 47 female had me when they were very young. They were both in conflict for the first couple years of my life and my dad ended up leaving us. My mom went through a court case and ended up getting full custody of me, which wasn't that hard as my dad was nowhere to be found. A year after getting custody of me, my mom met my stepdad, 50 male, and fell for him immediately. They dated for a couple years, then eloped. My stepdad legally adopted me and we were one happy family. When I was 15, my mother told me that my birth father had contacted her and was trying to get contact with me. She told me I didn't have to meet him if I didn't want to, but she thought it would be good for me to know my father. I decided to meet with him, and he explained that at the time he was not financially stable enough to take care of me, and it was draining on his mental health, which is the reason for him leaving. I forgave him as he is still my father and I wanted a relationship with him. I started meeting him once a week and started building an okay relationship with him. I still wasn't 100% sure about him, but I wanted to give him a second chance. When I went to university, me and my dad grew out of touch a bit, and I would only see him a couple times a year. But I always had a relationship with him. Skip to 3 months ago, my fiancé proposed to me and I was over the moon. I called my mother and stepdad immediately and told them, and they were ecstatic for me. I asked them at a dinner a week later if they could walk me down the aisle and if my stepdad could give me away. They said yes, and my stepdad was so overjoyed that I thought of him that he even cried when I asked him. A few days later, my dad called me, fuming. I'm just gonna write how the conversation went. Him, how could you not tell me sooner? As your father, I have a right to know first. Do you know how embarrassing it is to know that I found out at the same time as some random friend of your fiancé? Me, I only told a few people. And that was because those people were in the wedding ceremony and therefore needed to find an outfit quicker than the people I sent the invites to. Pause. Him, but I'm walking you down the aisle. I am in the wedding ceremony. Me, my mom and Josh, stepdad, are walking me. Him, you're supposed to be walked by your father, not some tramp your mom found on the street. Me, he's not some tramp. And legally, he is my father. He adopted me while you were God knows where after you left me. He's more of a father than you ever were and ever could be. He hangs up. He responded to the wedding invite with a cannot attend and hasn't spoken to me since. I don't know what to do as I do want him in my life. But should I have just let him walk me down the aisle? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. His reaction says everything about him. It's not about you at all. He can't take back those life choices or redo all the missed years. He now sees the consequences and they hurt. That's his problem, not yours. The guy's probably more concerned with how he would look if his daughter rather have her real father walk her down instead of her bio father. Shows what kind of self-centered man he is. Couldn't be bothered staying in touch with his daughter because me. And now he expects to walk her down because he is in her life for some years again. Again, me. Also talking down on the man that raised his daughter, instead of being grateful that the guy actually cared enough about Opie. The man only cares about himself. Not the a-hole. Your birth father chose to leave you and only got in touch when your mom was done with the difficult parts of having a child. Your stepdad is your family. He raised you. Of course you want him to walk you down the aisle. Agreed. I have a cousin who justified leaving his wife and infant daughter with similar logic. The financial pressure was too much and messing with his mental health. He treated his family like a gym membership he couldn't afford and just canceled it. This cousin is the most obvious narcissist I know. I know a few who I think are more toxic/dangerous but less obvious about it. So it's no surprise Opie's dad is a self-centered a-hole. He prioritized himself above his family when he left them, and he obviously has not changed since. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my sister will always be a priority and I'd put her on the same level as my own kids? I, 34 male, have a sister Caitlin, 21 female. We have a decent age gap. We're technically half-siblings but never used the term. Her dad left her before she was born and our mom died when I was 22 and Caitlin was 9. As I'd essentially helped my mom raise her, I gained custody and continued to raise her. I adopted her when she was 12, and while we do still refer to each other as brother and sister, she will always be my first kid. I changed her diapers. I started clothing and feeding her long before our mom died as our mom needed help financially. I was there for every nightmare, temper tantrum, survived the hormonal teenage years. She's my kid. No doubting that. Caitlin is at college now, but she still lives with me on breaks. I've been dating my current girlfriend, Abby, 32 female, for 8 months now. We've began talking about the future, what we see for ourselves, etc. I mentioned that it was important to me that Caitlin always had a home with me, that I'd always want a room set aside for her, etc. Abby was somewhat hesitant and asked why. I told her that if anything happened, I'd want Caitlin to have a safe place to land. Abby doesn't like that. She asked what happens when we have kids. I said I could care for all of them, but Caitlin is my first kid and should be a priority. Same as the rest. I do the same for any kid we had. Abby got pissed and said our kids would be my real kids and they should come before Caitlin. I refused. She told me this was wrong and I'd be a horrible father if I acted like this. Our hypothetical kids deserved better, etc. Am I the a-hole? Info. Buy a room set aside for her. You intend to have separate rooms for every kid you take care of? That can get unwieldy very fast. If you're saying that you want a general guest room that Caitlin can use anytime she needs it, that's one thing. But her own room that's only for her when she's now an adult and theoretically wouldn't be living with you? That seems a bit of an overkill. Most people can't or won't do that for their adult children. Because, well, they're adults. Yeah, it'd be more like a guest room. Though, of course, my biological kids will also have their own rooms to fall back on. It sounds to me that you and your girlfriend have had a major miscommunication about all this then. The girlfriend didn't object to having a room set aside. She objected to the very idea that Caitlin would have a place of equal importance and similar character in Opie's life to their hypothetical future children. I don't think that's a miscommunication. Not the a-hole. This is the red flag you need to move on. This isn't someone you want to build a life with. Here's the thing. Opie really needs to think through what does it mean to have a room dedicated to an adult. Not now, but at some point, in your home. I understand the desire to make sure she always has somewhere to go. But buying a 3-bedroom home is different from buying a 4 or 5 depending on kids and life in general. Many people use bedrooms as offices. At some point, there has to be some sort of reasonable balance and expectation that little sister is responsible for and can manage her own life. I'm still going with the not the a-hole because of the whole real kids thing. Particularly in an 8-month relationship. It screams no compassion. However, I still think Opie needs to think more broadly and longer term. Lots of people have guest rooms though. Mine also doubles as a crafting room, etc. But if my adult kid needs it, it will always be theirs. Having a room that can become their space doesn't always look like a dedicated room. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking back my offer to help with my friend's wedding? Last year, my friend Jess, 35 female, finally got engaged to the man she's been dating for the past 15 years. We live in a high cost of living city and Jess's finances have always been very tight. Her wedding budget was $5,000. It's workable since she works in catering and has connections, and her fiancé's family has a house with a big yard. I offered to take pictures for free. I'm an amateur photographer with a basic gear and a background in photojournalism. I'm not going to be hired to shoot for Martha Stewart's weddings, but I would have provided some nice pictures. Jess turned me down, citing my lack of a wedding portfolio. I thought that maybe she or her fiancé had access to someone with more experience, and I ignored her unusually snotty tone when she said thanks but no thanks. Fast forward to last Thursday, Jess calls me in tears because she does not have a photographer. Neither she nor her fiancé know anyone else, and she doesn't want to count on guests' camera photos. She asked if I can take pictures. I was more than happy to do so at the wedding and reception, but she wanted me to shoot the whole day. Her getting ready, traveling to the venue, the wedding ceremony, and her fiancé leaving the reception. I said I had other commitments that morning, but reiterated that I could show up an hour before the wedding to get some before shots and take photos at the ceremony and reception, including the usual post photos, family, wedding party, etc. She said I could either take photos for the entire day or not bother even coming to the wedding as a guest. She got married this past Saturday and I wasn't there. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She just wanted to use you as a last resort. She didn't consider your feelings or life at all. I don't think Jess is a friend to you. Not the a-hole. You know now where you stand. Do the whole day for free or not at all. Wow. Congratulations for standing up for yourself. Just think of the lack of gratitude and criticism of the pictures you would have taken. You dodged a bullet. I'm so sorry. Huge bullet dodged. Sounds like this was a pretty poorly organized event given that bride was scrambling for something as important as a photographer last minute. Bet there were similar problems with the food and drinks given the low budget and poor planning. Opie saved herself time and gift money by not going to this miserable wedding. I don't think there even was another photographer. The bride probably planned on doing this all along to get free emergency photography from someone who had spent time and money investing in it. Reddit may have skewed my viewpoint though. Not the a-hole. Let me see if I understand this correctly. So you offered to do her whole wedding for free and she said no, only to call last minute and demand you come and work a full day. Worst yet, when you offered to do your best, she rescinds the invitation to the wedding because your insanely free offer isn't good enough? Yeah, this isn't an AITA question. This is a why the heck was this person considered a friend to begin with question. Not the a-hole and please get better friends. You seem like you deserve some great ones. This is honestly the one moment of a-holery in all of our years of friendship. You know how stuff like this happens, and when you think back you realize, oh yeah, there was also that time, and that time too. There isn't any of that in our history. Until now, she's been a thoughtful, kind, and a good friend. So it's easy to think the stress might have gotten to her. Well, you're the only one who can decide how important it is to keep her in your life. If it were me and we were really good friends, I'd give her a couple weeks and reach out for lunch. Talk about what happened and how it hurt you. And what's worse is that because of it, you didn't get to share that day with her. See how she responds. But she owes you a huge apology. She might come to her senses and reach out, and she might not. Or she might be too ashamed to reach out. But again, it's really up to you how much you want to put into salvaging the friendship. You're certainly not the a-hole, and you're the one who's been wronged here. I think I'll give this 2 weeks. If she reaches out to me to talk, I'll definitely meet up with her. I'll figure out how I feel about reaching out if I don't hear from her in that time though. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for helping my sister elope and giving her my grandmother's special ring? Some background to help understand the family dynamic. My 22, parents aren't understanding people. Dad, 57, is significantly worse. He thinks his way is the correct way and we always need to learn from him. He's very, very close to his siblings, especially my Uncle Peter, 60, and always likes to take their opinions. I have a sister Laura, 28. She's amazing, but kind of soft and gets emotional pretty easy. Growing up, my parents were manipulative and borderline emotionally abusive towards her. And I think she also tried to shelter me in a way, so my experiences growing up were quite different from hers. I thought she was just a drama queen and didn't realize until I got older. I'd say mom has changed and tries to be supportive now, but dad's still good old dad. Me and Laura are close, but she's not as close to our parents, especially dad, but she still talks to them. My grams, dad's mom, gave me a ring as a gift for my 18th, which granddad had gifted her a long time back. It's not worth a lot, but definitely a special piece. Okay, now to the issue at hand. A couple years back, Laura went on a date or two with a guy Harry, 30 I think, but nothing came of it. Fast forward to now, it turns out this guy Harry is from a very upper-class family, and Uncle Peter is friends with his dad. I guess at one point Harry mentioned to him that he went on a date with Laura, and Peter and his wife pretty much lost their minds, trying to get them back together and other nonsense. Meanwhile, Laura's been with Jack, 34, for over a year now, and they are serious. Dad, of course, sat Laura down to convince her that Harry is the one. Also, a side note, it's not like Jack is unemployed or something. He's an attorney and has a good background. I know there was a massive argument between all of them after Laura found out that Dad had literally gone to Jack and told him to leave her. Jack brought up the idea of eloping. I encouraged it, and Laura agreed. Me and a few others from Jack's side helped them set up everything and get a marriage license, and I gave Laura Graham's ring as a happy elopement gift. I did tell Mom vague details on what was going on, but Dad and Peter and company found out a few days ago. It's been a mess since then. Apparently, Uncle Peter's embarrassed and doesn't have face in front of Harry and his family. Dad's upset at me for helping them, but more so because I gave Graham's special ring for something like this. He said one of us could have at least told them beforehand and not created the situation now. I won't even get started on what's going on within the extended family. Was I the a-hole for helping them elope and also give Graham's ring away? Some people are saying I shouldn't have brought myself into Laura's drama, and my aunt actually said giving the ring away was the same as stealing it. Am I the a-hole for helping my sister elope and giving her my grandmother's special ring? You are a great sibling, not the a-hole. See also, am I the a-hole for making sure that at least one member of my sister's family cares about her as a human being and not just a way to consolidate power with another family? Not the a-hole, it was gifted to you. Sounds like a family heirloom, but seeing as Laura is your sister, it stays in the family too. It's way less risky to gift heirloom jewelry to the women in the family. I'll never understand a passing to the male side, and then there's major drama after a divorce. It's also the tradition for a reason. Women were gifted jewelry as a way to run if they needed to. Until recently, jewelry didn't go down in value after it was purchased like modern engagement rings. Women were given jewels because they are light, transportable, and generally considered one of the few things that actually belonged to her. I mean, not the a-hole to help them. They were going to do it anyway, and all people here have been adults for a long time now. Also, the ring is yours and you are giving it to stay in the family, not to someone from the outside. I'm wondering though in which century you're all living, in which a dad tries to arrange a marriage and the only way out your sister and her boyfriend can think of is eloping. I'm assuming because of the names, and no note saying English is not your first language that you are living in an English-speaking country, so arranged marriages are not a thing. I mean, we live in the 21st century, but my dad and his family probably live in the 15th. They've always been all about status and stuff. Am I the a-hole for leaving an equal inheritance to my stepson as my bio kids? I, 62 male, met my current wife, 39 female, 4 years ago, and we got married 2 years ago. She has a son, 12 male, from her previous marriage who lives with us full-time. His dad visits occasionally but lives in another country. I also have 2 adult children, 34 male and 32 female, from my first marriage. I will admit I don't have the greatest track record as a father. While my bio kids were growing up, we were kind of distant, as their mother and I were constantly fighting. She was a stay-at-home mom while I was running a business to varying degrees of success. However, when they became adults, we, bio kids and I, became much closer. My business also grew a lot and I am quite wealthy now compared to struggling to pay bills when my bio kids were growing up. My relationship with my stepson is quite good. He doesn't call me dad but seems to view me as a very close uncle. I do my best to be a good father figure to him. If I'm being completely honest, I hope that eventually he will see me as a father figure, especially given that his father is never really around and constantly disappoints him. So here's the issue. A few weeks ago, while I was going through some things in the basement with my bio son and daughter, the topic of inheritance came up. I mentioned how I planned to include my stepson in my will and he would get 1/3 of the inheritance. I don't remember how exactly we got to this topic. Well, my kids are furious with me now, telling me this was unfair, as they had to grow up with a cold, emotionally and physically distant / unavailable father who struggled to bring food to the table. They mentioned how my stepson gets to live a luxurious childhood with a much kinder and more present / emotionally available and supportive parent than they had ever had, while not even being my real son. Then on top of that, they would lose out on the inheritance they feel they had earned for working so hard to repair our relationship after all the damage I had done to them. To clarify, that's not something they said. It's something I'm trying to be cognizant of because they absolutely could have walked away, but chose to try to repair our relationship before my business was even successful. And they both had a hand in making the business successful because they were willing to help out. I can understand their point of view. They feel like I'm sliding them from my new family with a much younger wife and what they claim as a do-over child, which is not, but I can see why they see it that way. I want to do right by my stepson, but also my bio kids who did have to put up with a lot more during their childhood than my stepson. Am I the a-hole for planning to leave an equal inheritance to him? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole without a doubt. Why are you treating some random kid that you've known for 2 minutes the same as your actual real kids who you have apparently failed over and over again? I guess you can leave him a bit, but 1/3 is ridiculous. Agreed. He has this kid in his life for a hot minute, and he's already in the will? He isn't on the same level as the bio kids just yet. I would have waited to make sure the new wife and kid actually stick around before adding them in. And the kid doesn't even see him as a father figure either, just a close uncle. Absolutely wild. You're the a-hole. While theoretically it is lovely to leave something to a stepchild, you leaving an equal share to the child of your trophy wife is really tone deaf. Your bio children are not being greedy for not being pleased by your showing once again that you are not treating them fairly. You have shown them that you, who are old enough to be this kid's grandfather, now has decided to have a new family as a do-over. Also, you do realize that your stepchild is going to wind up with more than the bio kids anyway, since you are going to leave a sizable amount to your new trophy wife and you will almost assuredly die before her given the large difference in age. The stepchild is going to inherit from his mother the amount you left to her, as well as the 1/3 directly. And I bet you are also leaving the wife your house and other valuable personal property. A lot of bio kids have been screwed out of stuff when the father takes up a new family. When my grandfather passed 2 years ago, we discovered that he had moved most major assets into solely second wife's name. So the terms of the will screwed my dad and his brothers and all the grandchildren out of basically everything. He was also a man who married a much younger woman. She was my oldest uncle's girlfriend in high school for some added drama, and was an absolute a-hole to my grandmother and their children their entire married life and beyond. We expected nothing because he was awful, and got nothing. But that extra FU of his second family getting everything, except the token I didn't forget you stuff, and they don't see what the problem is the reason I'm low contact with any of that part of the family since grandma passed. Next story. Am I the a-hole for buying my nephew a gift rather than giving his parents the money? My 33 female nephew just turned 1. My sister-in-law Hannah, 34, and brother-in-law Dave, 34, are dual income and doing alright. They're firmly middle class. They own a home and go on a couple vacations a year. They decided to host a big party for their first and only child's first birthday. A little background. My husband and I are kind of known for getting good birthday gifts for nieces and nephews. They range in age from 1 to 13, and we know that the other 2 families struggle more financially than Hannah and Dave, who this post is about. So we have historically always asked what their child would like, and go out of our way to get them something special. I'm not talking big-ticket items like an iPad, but like $150 to $200 for each gift, each year. I asked Hannah what her son William would like, that he doesn't already have at home. She didn't answer my text, but later in the day, she sends a mass email to both sides of the family and friends who are attending William's first birthday. This was the email. Hi friends and family. We look forward to having you at William's first birthday. Some of you are asking what you can buy for him. What he really needs is a new deck to play on in our backyard. Therefore, we ask that everyone donate funds towards that goal, rather than physical gifts. The deck will cost a total of $10,000 and we anticipate that 35 of you will be attending. Please give as you're able. William will be so excited by this addition to his outdoor space. Love, Hannah, Dave, and William. So off the bat, this request sat weird with me. I understand shifting towards experience-based gifts over physical gifts. I see the environmental argument for that, and also the human element. But that's not what this was. It was a deck. And I'm fairly certain Hannah and Dave can afford this deck without a fundraiser. Anyway, the part that makes me an a-hole is that I decided to totally disregard the email and spent $200 on a new train table for William. I had noticed that I fell in love with the one at our house that our boys have. I justified it because he's too young to realize that his parents are cheating him out of gifts, as I see it. Hannah noticed the large box at a party among a pile of cards filled with money. She asked who brought it, and my husband, her brother, said, "We did." She said, "I specifically sent an email after getting your text. Did you not read it?" Husband told her to take it up with me. Later on, she told me she was really frustrated and disappointed in me because she expected we would be contributing the most to the deck, as we have more money than the other family members. I said we wanted to get something just for William. Hannah scowled and told the rest of the family that I was using her son's birthday to grandstand and make them look bad. Rest of the family split on it. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Lol, not the a-hole. This is just glorious. She expected we would be contributing the most to the deck, as we have more money. Jesus, the entitlement. Hannah scowled and told the rest of the family that I was using her son's birthday to grandstand and make them look bad. She made herself look bad by requesting that her family finance essentially in addition to her home, instead of buying a 1-year-old child some toys and outfits. He's probably just starting to walk and can't quite talk yet, but he is so excited about that new deck. My dad and stepmom had a deck remodel when my middle nephew was less than a year. He liked his blankets and toys way more than the deck itself. Not the a-hole. The deck will cost a total of $10,000 and we anticipate that 35 of you will be attending. That's a "give us $300 for home improvements" email. It's totally inappropriate. Let's chalk it up to them behaving oddly due to the stress of the current financial crisis. You buying a child's gift for a child's birthday party was perfectly appropriate. They were wrong to A. ask for a wad of cash, and B. then demand to know who dare buy their child a gift instead of giving them a wad of cash. Because she expected we would be contributing the most to the deck as we have more money than the other family members. This just gets worse. I guess it wasn't a "give us $300 email. It was a hint hint. "Stacy, you should give us $1,500 while everyone else gives us $250 email. I honestly think that the deck would be the one of those projects that's never completed, with the money going elsewhere. Then again, I'm very cynical. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not chipping in for my brother and his husband's surrogacy fund and prohibiting my parents from donating as well, since I support them financially? They live a super lavish life. In my family, I am the only one close to financially stable. My parents earned enough to have a middle-class income, but my mom was a big shopper and my dad would blow his money at the casino. Now, my parents are at an age where they can no longer work. They mainly live off my mom's pension and the money I give them every month to support them. My brother went into dance after college and his job after school was working as a retail associate at a luxury store. But he also has the same problem with his money, where all his money he spends on clothes and nights out. My brother married this guy who is 20 years older than him. Brother is 26. This guy's in his late 40s. Initially, this guy framed himself as the rich older guy, but that isn't the case. Here is the thing. They are now asking everyone to donate them money so they can pay for a surrogate in Mexico. First of all, I find this whole thing skeevy as heck with this poor woman from Mexico. But financially, these guys are going on trips left and right. They constantly lease and swap out cars. So when they asked me for money, I told them no. They tried to guilt me, and I said no, not at all. Then I get a call from my mom about taking out a home equity line of credit, and I was like, absolutely not. I told my mom and these guys that if they care about this so much, they can save up for it. And I forbid her to give money to my brother and his partner. She's like, okay then, I'll give a little bit. I tell her no. I tell her I am the one that pays their bills. If I find out that they gave a cent, I'm going to cut them off as well. When my brother and his partner found out about this, they were very upset with me, and I told them I don't care. They are now calling me homophobic, etc., and that I am ruining their happy life. I told them I don't care. They can start saving money themselves, but I'm not going to spend a cent of my money to finance their lifestyle. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I don't think anyone but them should be asked to pay for their surrogacy costs. If they can't pay the surrogate fees, I wonder if they'll be able to over 18 years of child rearing costs. Opie's not the a-hole, but this rationale is always the worst. It makes no sense. Surrogacy is crazy expensive, as is IVF and adoption. Having money over 18 years to raise a child is very different than having to drop upwards of $100,000 at a one fell swoop. But again, to be clear, because I know someone will just skip right over this, Opie's not the a-hole here. It is not his responsibility to pay for his brother and his partner to have a surrogate. He already goes above and beyond for his parents, and he is not in the wrong for telling them he'll cut them off if they give his money to his brother indirectly. Not the a-hole. It is not homophobic to not want to give money to extremely financially irresponsible people. I do think you're on the fence with telling your parents what to do, but seeing as you also pay their bills, I would have done the same. The fact that they even tried to turn this into some sort of homophobia thing is disturbing. I hate when people do that. Like there is real hatred out there, and here they are throwing phobe around. Like no, I'm not meeting your financial demands. You are free to live as you like, but be a grown-up and finance your own life. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my son that I don't play favorites and to get over his jealousy? I have 2 children, Laurel 24 and Kevin 15. Laurel is from my first marriage. Kevin and my wife think that I favor Laurel, but that's just not true. They've complained about it over the years, but now it's at a boiling point. The most recent complaint is that I gave her a free house. None of their accusations have ever been true, but this one especially isn't. I've been with the same company for over 35 years. Decades ago, my job made me and several other employees travel to their headquarters so often that they bought us condos in the home city because it was cheaper at a time than constantly paying for hotels. At the time, property in the city was cheap. We had free use, but technically the company owned them and they paid all expenses. In 2020, obviously all business travel stopped. At the time, Laurel was moving to that city with her new husband and they were looking for a place. Because it was just sitting empty and would be for a long time, I told her that they could live in a condo until things went back to normal. It would be safe and clean, and it would give them a chance to save money for a better place for their own as they were expecting their first child. In 2021, 2 things happened. The company decided to shut down all physical offices for a permanent work from home, and I decided to take my retirement. With closing the physical offices, they also really wanted to get rid of the condos. They offered them to us at an extra discount. I didn't want it, but Laurel did. So she and her husband offered to pay the cost, and I let them. It was less than 1/4 of market cost, but it wasn't free or a gift to her. Kevin realizes that there's not going to be anything like that for him, and he is raging about it. He claims I've always done things like this, and that I gave her a house, but I'm probably going to kick him out at 18 like every American parent. My wife is on his side and angry about this, and that I let Laurel be a stay-at-home mother, and not her. None of these things are true. I didn't give her a free house. I let her buy one for a discount, because she happened to be buying at the exact time that there was any opportunity for one. Also, she got to be a stay-at-home mother because she happened to be having a baby at the only time in modern history that required people to stay home, not because I was funding her. I realize how it must look, but really, she just ended up doing things in special situations where there were unique opportunities. I don't think I'm in the wrong here, because I don't treat my children differently. If I happen to come across an opportunity for Kevin to do the same with the same, I would make sure he's aware, but I can't imagine I would. Not the a-hole. But honestly, I feel like your wife is the source of what Kevin is spewing out. What 15-year-old boy cares about housing? It seems like your wife is using Kevin to try and get you to buy a property in his or her name to even the scoring between Kevin and Laurel. My thoughts exactly. There just ain't no way a 15-year-old on their own would suddenly realize there's not going to be anything like that for him. Not really. Most kids these days know they will never be able to afford a home. Not the a-hole. I have a question for the wife and son. My hypothetical daughter is learning piano and my coworker has one they want rid of, so I get it at 1/4 value. My fake daughter pays for the 1/4 herself. I spent nothing. Do I now owe my hypothetical son a piano? Is that their reasoning? Or a step further, I drive my fake kids to the mall and we walk around. My daughter's favorite store has a clearance sale on, so she's able to use her own money to buy a huge load of stuff. Do I now owe my son the value of the savings she made? I can't get my head around the entitlement here. Apparently, if you're married to Opie's wife, you do owe her hypothetical son a piano, because you should have told your hypo daughter and grandchild to go pound sand and seized the opportunity for yourself so that you can give the piano for free to your son. Or if it's a house and not a piano, save it for 9 years while paying taxes on it until your son is the same age and can pay you outdatedly cheap price for it. Then, and only then, would you be doing the fair thing. Seriously, tell me she's a wicked stepmother without telling me she's a wicked step. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my dad and stepmom to my wedding? I, 28 female, am engaged to my fiancé Dave, 28 male. This week, I was going to my hometown and invited him to come with me so he can meet my family. He's met my brothers and my mom, but not my dad and extended family. When I was 16, my dad cheated on my mom with a very well-known escort, then married her. Not only was I going through a tough time dealing with our family being torn apart, but I also had to deal with all the ridicule of having an escort stepmom. People weren't as open with that kind of work back then, and it was hell for me when people found out. Especially since my stepmom was very vocal and confident about her work. I changed schools in my senior year because I couldn't handle everyone making fun of me because of my dad and stepmom. My older brother got suspended once because another kid made a joke about hiring our stepmom for a good time, and they got into a big fight. I stayed with my mom full time and barely spoke to my dad or stepmom. My dad wanted equal custody of me and my brothers, who were 17 and 14 years old at a time, but none of us wanted to live with him and his wife, and he couldn't really force us to split our time for him. He also gave up making an effort to see us at all when we said we don't want to live with him half the time, so we barely saw him. When I finished high school, I left our hometown and moved to a big city for college. My brother has also moved there, and our mom would come visit us all the time, so I didn't bother go back to our hometown. Dad didn't offer to come see us, and none of us have been back home, so this week was the first time I've seen my dad in about 10 years. My auntie was hosting a dinner party so everyone can meet my fiancé, and of course, my dad and stepmom were there. I was polite to them, but it was awkward, and my fiancé was doing all the talking. Stepmom asked us when and where the wedding is, and my fiancé told her it's on the 2nd of December. She said, "Wow, and you still haven't sent our invites?" My fiancé just kind of looked at me awkwardly, and I answered, "We have sent out invites, but our guest list is limited and we're only inviting our closest friends and family, so I couldn't make space for you and Dad. Sorry." She just smiled and said she understood we aren't inviting anyone we aren't super close to. We'll be having 30 guests in total. The next day, my dad comes to visit my fiancé and I at our Airbnb, and he asks me why him and his wife aren't invited to our wedding. He said I'm his only daughter, and he'll feel like a failure if he can't even walk me down the aisle. I said, it makes me sad that my dad won't walk me down the aisle either, but I'm not going to make a fuss about that tradition when we have barely spoken since I was 16. We don't have a father-daughter relationship, and I'm not going to pretend like we do just for my wedding. He started crying and asked how long I plan to punish him for what happened between him and my mom. He said he feels like he lost his children 12 years ago when he divorced my mom, and now I'm putting the final nail in the coffin. I told him I don't hold resentment over his divorce with mom and everything he did, but the fact of the matter is that we aren't close anymore. And I'm not interested in faking it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your dad is feeling like a failure because he is a failure of a dad. The audacity of people. I can't believe he broke up your family like that, hooking up with an escort, and expect you to have him walk you down the aisle like some kind of upstanding father. Ridiculous. 100%. Even if you overlook the cheating, breaking the family apart, and all the bullying endured, he stopped trying to make amends. It was on him to come to his children, but it probably just became easier on his pride to give up. OP, not the a-hole. I hope your mom is doing well. Your siblings too. You're going to have an amazing wedding. Call me traditional, but I've never understood why people who don't value wedding vows should be invited to weddings in the first place. Not the a-hole. Honestly, even the stepmom had a lot more grace about it. Not the a-hole. And at this point, the only a-hole is the dad. Even his mistress has more class than him. And that's the thing. At the very least, in the presence of everyone, she held it together. It's completely acceptable to be upset about things in your own private time. It's another to make a scene in front of people. Sound like stepmom has accepted this. You handled it perfectly, honestly. There is a vast spectrum between resentment and healthy relationship. And your dad doesn't get to guilt you into a relationship that doesn't exist. Don't let the consequences that is now fully realizing wait on you at all. Not the a-hole. OP, it is important to have the wedding both you and your fiancé want. You haven't asked Dad for any money for the wedding and didn't even invite him, so he has no say. As for his hurt feelings, it seems he has had delusions of walking you down the aisle and has only now realized that this is not gonna happen. It is a hard truth, but a choice made a long time ago. I hope you have a wonderful wedding and a very happy marriage. I wish you all the very best, OP. Congratulations. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she didn't come to my graduation? So a bit of background. My sister and I have always had a competitive relationship. 2 years ago, when I graduated from a master's program, she didn't attend because she was on a retreat with her then fiancé. It
It was a big deal for me because I was the first in our family to get a graduate degree, and I really wanted her to be there. I felt hurt, and we had a big argument about it where she said my graduation was just another ceremony and that I was being overly sensitive. Fast forward to now, she's getting married. The problem is, she chose a destination wedding on this very exclusive island, and the cost of attendance is way beyond what I can comfortably afford. I'm talking about several $1,000s for the weekend. When I told her I might not be able to come, she freaked out and said I was trying to sabotage her special day. I'm also a bit tight on money because I've been saving up to buy a house. I tried explaining this to her, but she said that I'm being selfish and that I should take out a loan if I have to because it is her once-in-a-lifetime moment. I haven't given her a definitive answer yet, but I'm leaning towards not going. My parents are saying that I should just suck it up and go to keep the peace, but I don't see why I should go into debt for a wedding when she couldn't even drive across town for my graduation. So am I the a-hole for not wanting to go to my sister's wedding? Not the a-hole. Never go in debt for someone else, especially a destination wedding. I'm sorry, I can't afford that and won't be attending. Rinse and repeat. Why should you have to keep the peace? It's not your destination wedding. If anything, your parents want the peace kept. Then they can pay you to attend as a gift. You're not selfish. Your sister is just entitled. Don't feel bad. After all, it's just another ceremony. The words destination wedding changed my answer instantly as soon as I read them. Forget the graduation. If you have to pay to attend someone's wedding, then there's no stipulation you have to go, no matter the relation. If you want a destination wedding, then you eat that some people won't be there who otherwise would have been. If there is someone specific that must be there, then you need to be prepared to foot the bill to get them there yourself. If you can't afford that, then you can't afford your destination wedding. Not the a-hole. If you're not going to her wedding ruins her entire wedding, then she's clearly got bigger issues to work out. Or she should have planned with you in mind if it's that important. Not just OP, I'd wager there's a few family members that would have difficulty affording to go, especially these days. Not the a-hole. Never keep the peace. It is a phrase used when you are right, but those who use it are unwilling to call out the real a-hole, your sister. Don't put yourself in debt or use savings for a vanity wedding. Because that's all it is, her ego-stroking destination wedding. If she needs you there, let her pay for you. But seriously, don't go. Your reasons are 100% valid. I hate this phrase with every fiber of my being. It's used to bully people into tolerating crappy behavior, and it serves only to encourage a-holes to keep being a-holes. I refuse to keep the peace with someone who treats me badly. I will call them on it, or simply cut contact. The others I hate, be the bigger person and but family. Next story. Am I the a-hole for showing my mom the letter my sister wrote to me before she died? I, 16 male, lost my sister Birdie last year. Birdie was 20 when she died. She had been diagnosed with cancer a year before her death. She knew she was dying, so she made a will for the very few things she had. It was mostly sentimental childhood stuff she had. Old stuffies, and she had a necklace that our dad bought her. Stuff like that. It wasn't a lot, but she left it all to me. She also wrote a letter to me before she died. But anyway, I was the only person who got anything from Birdie. She left our paternal grandparents in charge of everything until I'm 18, or until I'm out of my mom's house. The problem with this is Mom has other kids. Birdie and I lost our dad when we were both kids. Mom remarried. Neither of us really cared much for my mom's husband, and when Mom had more kids, we didn't feel the same about them as we did each other. Birdie was more vocal when I didn't say anything. Mostly I didn't want to fight with Mom over it, and I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But Birdie and Mom never really got along, and it was only worse after Dad died and then Mom remarried. The fact Birdie left nothing for our half-siblings and never even wrote them a goodbye letter bothers Mom, and it really upset them because they wanted to know why she wrote to me and left me her stuff, but not them. They wanted to read my letter, but I said no. It became a fight with Mom then, and she wanted to know why Birdie left the rest of the family nothing, and why even when she knew she was dying, she couldn't find a way to embrace the other kids enough to give them something. A small goodbye. I showed Mom the letter because Birdie wrote a lot about her feelings and mentioned things she and I talked about when Mom wasn't around. I knew the letter would be a lot. Birdie said clearly that she never loved or cared about the other kids at all and wanted me to know that she didn't want them to have anything. But if I felt differently, if I ended up loving them one day and wanted to give them something of hers, that she wouldn't be mad. Mom read the whole thing twice, if not 3 times, and then she asked me why I had shown her the letter and what did I want to do with her. She was so mad she was shaking, and she told me I was never to show my half-siblings, and I pointed out that I had said no to them reading it already. Nothing else was said that day, but then Mom told me I was cruel for rubbing my sister's words in her face, and she wanted me to know she might never be able to forgive me for it. She told me forgiveness would be off the table if I ever breathed a word of it to her other kids. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She asked and didn't like the answer. That answer was not yours. It was Birdie's, and in her own words. I'm sure it stung like hell, but she asked. It is not right or fair for her to be mad at you for giving her what she wanted. Birdie has the right to do with her stuff what she wanted. It would be best not to ever show the letter to the others unless they push you into it. My guess would be that they're going to at some point. Be jealous if there is any real money waiting for you and not them. If you don't have to hurt them, then don't if possible. Hide that letter very well and take a picture of it and email it to yourself for safekeeping. Good luck. No real money. It was just sentimental stuff that she kept. But what little money she did have, I also get. I would definitely get copies and put the original letter somewhere safe until you can move into your own places in a few years. Yes, I have a feeling she might try to destroy the letter. Last story. Am I the a-hole for putting pressure on my sister after she found out her husband got another woman pregnant? My sister has been married for 10 years, and she has 3 children with her husband. She found out 2 weeks ago that her husband cheated on her at least a dozen times and got the other woman pregnant. This is, of course, has been the most awful thing for my sister, and I have been supporting and comforting her ever since she learned what happened. My sister has spoken like she's heavily leaning towards staying with her husband so their kids' lives don't get turned upside down. She has said that she could not be around a child though, and would never accept them. I understand her feelings are all over the place and that she's still raw with all of this. But when she talked about staying and mentioned her feelings for the child, I felt like I needed to step in, and this is where I might be the a-hole. So there is some background as to why I feel so strongly. Our dad was the result of an affair. He was not American, and his country of birth did not give divorce as an option. So his father's wife stayed, and he ended up with custody of Dad. Dad was made to suffer for his birth, and it was something that really weighed on Dad for the rest of his life. He said he was born hated, and he knew he would die hated if his half-siblings were still alive in his country of birth. His childhood was miserable, and there were times he wondered how he survived his childhood. It was rough, and he moved to America young to start anew and have a better life. We were told about this a few times, and I always think of Dad and the pain he carried because of his childhood. So I truly feel divorce is better, and especially when it's so easily available here, versus what Dad went through and what his father's wife went through with no options to leave. This is why I told my sister she shouldn't stay just to keep her kids' lives from turning upside down. I pointed out that it was not healthy for anyone, told her to think of Dad. She told me I shouldn't be putting pressure on her right now, that she knows what Dad went through, but this is her kids' lives. It's her life. She told me I wasn't helping anymore and that's what she needed. Help via me listening to her and shutting up about leaving. Then she told me I freaking sucked right now, and I should be more worried about her than anyone. Am I the a-hole? The real a-hole here is your sister's husband, who not only cheated on her, but also didn't even have the decency to use protection while doing so. Would he have ever told your sister about his affair if his mistress hadn't gotten pregnant? My guess is no, given how long the affair had already been going on. The real advice her sister needs is to get tested for STD or STIs. No a-holes here except her sister's husband. Apologize to her and just listen until she has had the time to start to process things. She's right, it has been only 2 weeks. Also, your sister is really traumatized and needs to make a lot of decisions and get used to a new reality. She needs to get through her many emotions, and it's okay to let her be mad at you until she can find it safe to be mad at her rotten husband. She's going to have a long period of adjustment, so be patient with her and with yourself, and encourage her to express herself. I know that you are very much not the a-hole. Much love and care to you both. This literal exact thing happened to me last year. I found out in July. I am just now fully adjusted to my new life, and still processing my emotions/feelings. This advice is spot on. She has a lot to get through. My heart hurts for OP's sister. It is an awful traumatic thing that happened to her. I filed for divorce a little less than 2 months ago. I just wanted to put it out there. OP's sister could take a while to get through this. Your sister's kids' lives are already being turned upside down. Kids know when things aren't right with their parents, and forcing a happy family onto a serial cheater with a baby mama is not going to work at all. The kids will suffer less if she leaves him and finds someone who will be a true partner and treat her with respect. She is in denial and seems to think she can just will this away. She cannot. Her husband will keep cheating and she will stay miserable, and her kids will know about it and it will influence their future relationships for the rest of their lives. I get that she feels she needs support from you and not a lecture on things she already knows. But she's got big decisions to make, and quickly. Not the a-hole, but maybe apologize to soften the blow, as you don't want her to distance herself. But at the same time, it doesn't sound at all to me like she's really thinking of her kids yet.